Today is March 8th, 2026, and welcome to the 478th episode of the Videogames podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10 and offers full accessibility info on every review we publish. Hello! Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. Welcome back if you're a return listener. Welcome, big welcome if you're a first-time listener. Glad to have everyone here. It's going to be just me today. No special guests were available for the recording, so we shall sally forth, and I will do what I do. All right. Let's see. Let's get right into it so we're not wasting any time here. Let's see. Okay, I guess we got a couple housekeeping things. As per usual, going to kick things off with housekeeping. We talk about tidbits, news items, anything randomly game adjacent over the last 7 days. Just a couple of quick little bits. First, shout out to J Monster and Leechman over at the Two Guys, Three Consoles podcast. I'm going to be guesting on their show on the 10th. Always a good time to record with those folks. Looking forward to it. And they are frequent contributors to the Discord. They have a Discord of their own as well, so you can get in touch with them and chat with them if you like between episodes. So very excited for that. Looking forward to that, guys. And if you like this show, pretty good chance you will like their show as well. Otherwise, the only other thing to talk about is the swirl of Xbox rumors going around ever since they did the replacing of the leadership over at Xbox a couple weeks ago. All sorts of stuff has been swirling about. I think the latest thing, and I'm not sure how confirmed this is, I believe that I saw, I want to say it was like IGN or somebody reporting on this story saying that the new head of Xbox, I believe her name is Asha Sharma, was saying something on the lines of like, we're actually going to still do another Xbox, because I know people were considering maybe they were going to get out of the hardware business and go software only like Sega. But apparently, according to this story, she's like, no, we are going to actually do a for real next Xbox, whatever that's going to be called. But this one will be able to play PC games as well. So we don't know exactly what that means, how that's going to roll out, what that implies. I mean, I guess we can make a lot of guesses. We've seen Steam kind of get back in the Steam box business. I think there's a lot of people out there who still could be Steam customers or PC customers, but they don't want to fiddle with hardware. And especially now that the cost of PCs is so sky high, thanks to all these fucking AI morons doing their globally ruining nonsense. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not sure how that's going to shake down. Chips are chips. And so if you want to build some Xboxes, you still need the chips, whether it's a PC or an Xbox. So I don't know how that production supply is going to shake down, but I know there's a lot of people out there like myself who would be genuinely curious to play a lot of PC games, but just don't want to fiddle with it. Maybe they don't like where their PC is, or maybe they're on their PC all day and don't want to be on a PC when they get off work. I mean, there's a million reasons why PC gaming doesn't work for folks. And if it works for you, that's great. No shade. But there's a lot of people I know for a fact that it just doesn't really work for, myself included, one of them. So I would be interested, very interested, and I've been on the record for the last, many years saying I definitely want a way to play PC games that is hassle-free, doesn't have me fiddling with settings, doesn't have a fucked up UI, that I don't have to like manually download some patches or look for drivers or whatever the fuck else. If there's something that can do that, then yeah, I would be cool with that. But I just don't want to mess with settings. I don't want to set, I don't want to have to go in and like tell the machine how I want it to run my game. I just want it to run, I just want it to run. And so if somebody can do that, if Xbox can do that, if Steam can do that, if anybody can do that, I'm on board. I think there's a lot of games out there on PC that have never come to console that I would really like to play. But it's got to be in a way that's comfortable and easy for me. And I'm sure for like millions of other people. So if Xbox is doing that, I don't have a problem with it really. Like I don't really have a vested interest in keeping these like walled gardens going where certain games are locked to certain platforms. And I mean, whatever, like I have all the consoles anyway, because I'm a game critic. I need to kind of keep up with it, but PC is something that just never has really been a part of my picture, and I would be happy to add it, but just, if it was in a way that was just less PC-ish. So I don't know how true that is. We don't have any details whatsoever. This is just talk, reporting of what somebody said. I mean, who knows what, but I think it's possible. Xbox has definitely been pursuing the strategy of play Microsoft enabled games anywhere, and they did that stupid campaign recently where like everything's an Xbox, your toaster's an Xbox, your phone's an Xbox. Not really, but I kind of get what they were going for. So if they want to adopt a brand agnostic approach towards games publishing or game storefront or whatever, I mean, okay, I don't care. I mean, if there was a cool Xbox that could play Xbox and PC games, and then a Sony game gets on some store, gets on Steam, and then I download that game and play it on my Xbox, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me who publishes what, or what box is what, or what the name is on the box. I just want cool experiences and fun experiences like anybody else. So we'll see what happens. Again, all this stuff is in the air, no specifics whatsoever, but it's definitely the buzz this week. So I'm very curious to see how this all plays out. At this particular moment, I'm realizing I should have had another cup of coffee. I do not have another cup of coffee. Okay, we're going to just do the best we can, folks. We're going to do the best we can. This week, I knowing that I didn't have another guest on, and I was a little bit light on content, I put a question out to the Discord, which is free of charge to join. Anybody listening to the show is welcome to join. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was asking folks, hey, if anybody has questions or comments or thoughts or ideas, I would love to get them, and I'll talk about them here on the show. And there was a bunch. So thank you to everybody in the Discord. Love you all. We're developing a lovely little community here. And I will read all of these questions right now and answer them too. Not just read them. Okay. First question comes from Karis. Karis says, I wonder if any game made you utterly fall in love with a series or an IP you previously didn't care for. I am utterly in love with Pocopia and now Pokemon after not caring for the latter at all. They actually look adorable to me for the first time. Anything melt your stony cold heart like that before? Okay, good question. And I am very curious about Pocopia. It does seem to be winning over people who I don't normally associate with being Pokemaniacs. And since we're talking about that, I am not a Pokemon person at all. This is not the answer to your question, but I think the only Pokemon game I've ever played all the way through was probably Pokemon Yellow way back in the day. And maybe I played one of the Pokemon Stadium games. Pokemon Snap, I finished that, Pokemon Snap. But I'm not a Pokemon guy. I just don't think it's that fun. I think the RPG elements of the traditional Pokemon experience are pretty bad, and I feel like the series hasn't advanced very much. But this one seems to be getting people excited. I got to look into this. Maybe they've really innovated things and changed things up. So that's cool. Checking it out. Thinking about your question, I have to say no. I can't think of any one installment of anything. I mean, surely there must have been, right? Surely there must have been at some point. But nothing is springing to mind. But what did spring to mind was developers. I have had developers where I hate their work, and then all of a sudden they do something like amazing. And then I'm like, okay, wait, I'm back on board. I think you guys are talented after all. And the most prominent thing that I can think of, which I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with, is Team Ninja. Team Ninja from Japan, well known for doing the Ninja Gaiden series, which I famously hate. I hate all of the Ninja Gaiden games. I hated the NES games because they were hard as fuck and so cheap and just so irritating. I don't know if y'all know, but like with the NES Ninja Gaiden game back in the day, and I believe that was one of the very first games to ever have a cutscene in it. That was one of the reasons it just like spread like wildfire back then. 2D pixel platformer. But you could get all the way to the last boss, who was extremely difficult. And this was a hard game, like definitely one of the hardest games on NES, I think, for sure. If you're not just talking about like broken shovelware stuff. If you're talking about like a legit game that was well made and was still hard, I think Ninja Gaiden must be near the top, if not the top. And if you this was such a bullshit game. You got to the last boss. If you died at the last boss, they sent you 4 levels back. 4 complete fucking levels back. So you didn't just get to retry the boss. You didn't even just get to go to the beginning of the level he was in. You went 4 motherfucking levels back. And if that doesn't sound like spirit crushing, despair inducing, then I don't know what. So that was crazy. And when I found that out, I'm like, fuck off and fuck you. Later on, the Ninja Gaiden series just kept going. Like these incredibly irritating, incredibly cheap, incredibly difficult Twitch games where the camera work was shit. I did not like the character design. Lots of chauvinist stuff in these games. The people on the team were really outspoken and just really shitty and assholey, very full of themselves. I was just like, I'm so sick of you guys. Like, I don't like your work and I don't like you. So that was just like, I just hated Team Ninja. They were just like really high on my shit list for like many, many years. And then Neo came. And I'm like, this game's probably going to be ass, just like the other couple games they put out, just like every Ninja Gaiden game. Whatever, I'm already mad at it and I haven't even played it yet. And then I played it and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is like super different than anything else they've ever made. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a different director, like same team, different director, different team, maybe like an A team, B team situation. I don't know what happened, but something was like really, 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 really different at Team Ninja when the first Neo came out. I was like, wow, okay, wait a minute. It still has some of that little bit of the bullshitty tendency, but like 90% reduced. And they've put in like a Dark Souls world, and they've put in like a Diablo loot mechanic, and they put in like all these different weapon handling systems that Ninja Gaiden didn't have. And it didn't feel like Ninja Gaiden anymore. It didn't handle like Ninja Gaiden, and it didn't even seem like Team Ninja until you got to some of those hard bosses and you're like, oh yeah, it's you assholes again. So that was, I think, the thing that really turned me around. Now, we're not best friends. It's not like I love Team Ninja now. I am cautiously enthusiastic about Team Ninja. My guard is not down. I'm ready for these guys to be dicks again at any time. I think the dickishness is still there. As I think I mentioned a while ago on the show, Neo 1, great experience. Neo 2, great experience. Neo 2 DLC, fuck you and fuck off. It was so hard. It was like the original Ninja Gaiden bullshit all over again, and it made me mad all over again. It made me hate them all over again because they ruined a game that I like with DLC that was just like absurdly difficult and super shitty. Really, really, just really cheap. Player aggro for sure. And then they came to Neo 3, and I'm like, okay, this is good again. So, what's that other one? Like, is it Wolong? I think Wolong they made. That one's also good too. So they still have their bullshit tendencies, but this is probably the biggest turnaround I've ever done on a developer. Not a game. I know I didn't directly answer your question, but this is probably the closest thing I could come to where I hated Team Ninja with everything. I mean, they just like were everything I hated about the games industry to a T. Like just down the line, everything I hated about them, really hated. And then Neo came out and I'm like, okay, wait, you guys are doing something different. This is different philosophy. So, okay, I have to feel different. I cannot carry my grudge forward. I need to change my perspective. And I did. So I am actually genuinely Neo fan. I think all three of those games are great. And they are miles better than anything they've ever done in the Ninja Gaiden series. So that's the biggest turnaround I've done on something. Hopefully that satisfies your question, Karis. I appreciate the question very much. Carlos Rodella, never heard of this guy. I guess first-time listener. Carlos Rodella chips in on the Discord. He says, what's your favorite game of the year so far? That's easy. You guys all know. If you listen to the show, you all know. It's Karen. Karen is my favorite of the year by far, and by a large margin. Karen is pretty amazing. I know a lot of people bounced off of it. I know it is not a perfect game. There are mechanical issues with it. There are design issues and UI issues with it. I in no way am I saying it's a perfect game, but I did give it a 10 out of 10 because I feel like what it was doing was fucking just incredible. Taking several different elements, like a mountain climbing physics element. There's like a Tomb Raider adventure element. There's a narrative, introspective storytelling element. And there's also kind of like a larger humanistic element, all blended together in a pretty incredible experience that was incredibly unforgiving and very, very, very difficult. There were a couple times I wasn't sure I was even going to be able to finish the game. Shout out to Ryan Nally, who writes at Game Critics. If it wasn't for some advice I got from Ryan, I don't think I would have finished the game. But he told me something I needed to know right when I needed to know it, and it made the difference, and I did finish the game. And I just respect the hell of it. Again, problems, right? I think there's probably a big clash between the gameplay team and the artistic, guidance of the team. I think some of those elements clash. I think there are some systems that need to be improved. I think some of the mechanics need to be improved. But just overall, incredible, uncompromising artistic experience. It does something that's just fucking... I don't know. I can't think of anything else I've played that's ever been like that. And man, you get to this incredibly hard fought battle. You get to the end, you're climbing the mountain. You get to the top of the mountain if you're able to get there. And just like the ending just fucking blew me the fuck away. Like I had no word. I was like crying about it. I felt so good and so moved by the whole thing and just all of it. Just like, fuck, dude. I don't think that anything's going to top it, which is, I mean, it's not unfortunate, but kind of like weird that like the second game I played this year is probably going to end up being my overall game of the year because it's just such an incredible experience. So Cairn by a country mile. But I do keep a list of other games. And let's dip into that real quick. Let's do that real quick, just for fun. Hold on, I didn't even have it open because I am not a professional podcaster. What else have I really enjoyed this year? Let's see. Cairn, Neo 3 for sure. Vampire Therapist is, oh my god, amazing. Star Trek Voyager, Across the Unknown, I'm having a blast with. Sumerian 6, which I'll talk about today, is excellent. So there's like a lot of really solid games so far. And it's only just become March, so we're getting off to a very strong start. But despite all those games being amazing, Cairn is number one, like by such a huge margin. I don't think anything's going to top it. But we'll see. We'll see. You never, ever, ever know. Okay. Moving on. Zebra in the Discord says, hey, what's your favorite controller? Good question. I got to be honest. I think it's probably, if I thought about it, I think it's probably the PlayStation series of controllers. And I think probably, I mean, the PS5 controller is pretty good. I think that's probably my favorite. If I have a choice, I will play something on PS5 just because I like the controller better. I really did like the 360 controller a lot. I think that's maybe my second favorite. But I think overall the PS5 controller, and not because of the haptics or anything. I turn all the haptics off. I don't have any vibration. I don't like vibration. I don't like my controller rattling. I don't like it making noise. I want my controller to be silent and to be still, and just to be a thing that I hold. I don't need it fighting me back. So I turn off the haptics. That's not it. I just like the control of it, the design. It fits my hands well. I like where the buttons are. It's comfortable after playing with the PlayStation controllers for several generations. It just feels really good. But the 360 controller is pretty dope too. But no, I think the PS5 controller is where it's at for me. Yeah. I think just that just feels good to play. Nothing more complex than that. So my favorite, I think. And then Salty says, last question of the show here. He says, hey, what was your path into games journalism? I have no idea what your story is, sir. Okay, good question. I guess first off, I don't really think of myself as being a games journalist. I think of myself as just like a writer, or a reviewer. And to me, that's different. When I think of games journalism, I think of people who like do investigative interviews or who track down news or who do think pieces. And I guess I verge on some of that sometimes, but I just don't think of myself as really like a journalist at all. I've always kind of put myself in just the reviewer camp. I'm definitely a reviewer for sure, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that goes into journalism, and I don't think that I do most of that. And I don't want to take away from people who really do put in the time and effort to do the traditional journo route. So I don't know if it matters, but in my mind, I do that particular distinction. Okay, so that aside, how did I end up doing this? Okay, good question. So when I was a kid, and games were invented. When I was a kid, sounds weird to say that, but it was within my lifetime that video games were invented. Going to the arcade at Chuck E. Cheese, and then we got like the Atari 2600 and all that stuff. And I just really remember being even young, just being like, this game is good, this game is bad. And I kept a little spiral notebook, and I would write down the names of the games that I played, and I would put like a little star, like, 2 stars, 3 stars. And I would say, oh, I love this one, and this was good, or I hated this one, and this one sucked, or whatever. And I just naturally, I don't know, was very opinionated and wanted to have an opinion about things and wanted to share that opinion. I didn't do anything with those old interviews or those reviews. I mean, I think I still have that notebook somewhere in my storage unit. But I was just like, it just was something I did, and I messed around with that for a while. We're talking like I was like 8 or 9 maybe. And so after that, nothing, life, school, whatever, so forth and so on. Continued to play games for my whole life, but my family was pretty poor. And so, we didn't have a ton of games, didn't have a ton of money. So it would be like a big deal when we bought a game. Like we would rent games back in the day when you physically had to drive to a store, and then you had to go into the store and look on the shelf to see what games they had available to physically rent. And so I would do that a lot, coming up with $3.75 for a weekend rental was a lot easier than coming up with like 50 or $60, which is what games cost back then. And sometimes more. I remember like Final Fantasy was like $100 at the time when I went to Toys R Us or whatever. So, we've had varying game prices for like as long as games have existed. So, played a lot of games, played as many games as I could, would always ask for games for my birthday or Christmas. Whenever I had extra money, I would buy a game or rent a game. I just was just like a game person my whole life. Really enjoyed games. Life goes on, and then, I ended up being with a person who is not my current wife. I was with a lady, and no shade. I mean, she's a great person, really wonderful person, and I thought that she was going to be the one, but it didn't work out for a couple of reasons. And I think one of the reasons it didn't work out was she was not okay with video games. Not like super aggro, but like, definitely saw them as being kind of a waste of time, and didn't really have a lot of patience when I was like into a game and she wanted to do something else. And it was like this low level friction that at the time was just like whatever, because honestly, growing up, like games weren't cool like they are now. They weren't as pervasive as they are now. Like when you played games, you were like kind of a fucking nerd, and it wasn't really something that you wanted to talk about unless you knew for a fact that the other person played games as well, so they wouldn't shame you. And like it was kind of embarrassing. Like it was really geek culture in like a negative way. And that was just like, it was kind of I don't want to say it was shameful, but like it was definitely not something that you advertised when you were going out on a date. Like it wasn't anything you wanted to talk about, really. So, and also at that time, game conventions didn't really exist. I mean, there wasn't like a PAX or anything like that, because if there was, I mean, that would have been a different story. I would have just like gone to PAX and met some chicks at PAX, and that would have been that, right? But that didn't exist back then. So, that was an issue. There were other issues that cropped up as well, and eventually I split from that person, and then I moved to Hawaii, and I just was living out there for a while. And at that time, single guy out on the island, and had a lot of free time on my hands. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to lean into video games because no one's here to stop me, basically. And so I just started playing a bunch of games, bought myself a computer for the very first time. We had a family computer before that, but that was like everybody took a turn on it. It was in the living room, and you didn't really do anything on it. Everybody checked their email on AOL, and you waited for the dial-up to go through, and it made this big clanky noise and everything. But this was the first time I bought a computer for myself. And not everybody had computers back then. It was just not a thing. There weren't not really laptops back then. And it was kind of a big deal if you had a computer back then. So I had an okay job at the time, bought a computer, and I just started going online. And I'm like, well, at the time I was playing Code Veronica, Resident Evil Code Veronica on the Dreamcast. And I was like, this game fucking sucks. I hate Code Veronica. I have a lot of problems with this. I do not like it. And I went to go online to read reviews, because when you're an angry nerd who plays video games, you want confirmation of your opinions. That's what you do. And so I did. I looked around. I went to, I don't know where, did Metacritic even exist back then? It may not have existed. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't remember. But I remember looking for reviews of Code Veronica because I was mad about it. I'm mad because I spent the money and I didn't like it. And I looked for whoever scored it the lowest. And who was the lowest? It was GameCritics.com. And I'm like, okay, let's see what these guys have to say about it. And I believe it was a review written by the founder of Game Critics, Chi-Kong Liu. I'm pretty sure it was him who wrote that. And I read his review, and I'm like, okay, this is a pretty well-written review. This guy is pretty smart. And he comes to the correct opinion that this game kind of sucks. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I start reading Game Critics just as a reader. And I had all this time and, just nothing to do in Hawaii. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll see if they need a writer. And I go, yo, do you guys want a writer? Having no experience whatsoever. Nothing at all other than when I was 8 years old, right? So and they're like, yeah, okay, sure. Why don't you do a tryout piece for us? And I wrote a tryout piece. I think it was for the Dreamcast. It was, hold on, I got to look it up now. It's bothering me now. Okay, through the power of Google, it was Tech Romancer from 1998 or 99, something like that. Tech Romancer. I believe it was I want to say it was a Capcom robot fighting game back then. So I wrote a review and sent it in, and she was like, damn, this is pretty good. This is the first review I've ever had where I didn't have to edit it. Like, it was just good to go. And I'm like, sweet, thank you for the compliment. Let's do it. And so I just started writing reviews for them. At first, it was just games that I bought because they were just getting off the ground. At that time, I think they had only existed for like a year or maybe less than a year by the time I found them. So they were brand new as well. It was Shi Kung Lu, founder and owner, co-founder and owner Dale Weir, who has disappeared in the midst of time. And I believe also Ben Hopper was there, who was a actual journalist. He was working at a newspaper. And then later on, he went to DigiPen. And then he became a game animator and a good friend of mine. He still lives around here. Ben's a great guy. And he does something. I don't know what he does now. I've talked to him in many years, but it was those three guys. I joined. I was like the fourth person to join. And I just started writing reviews. And I wrote reviews and I wrote reviews. And then we started getting more and more codes because we were getting established as a website. And so, just free games. Why not? Write reviews. Sure, this is easy. Let's do it. And we just kept growing and growing and growing. And then eventually I'm like, actually, maybe I should, edit some of these reviews because I feel like we could tweak some of these things. And we went back and forth. And eventually I became the editor. And I just stayed. And I have been the editor of GameCritics.com for, I think it's been around for 27 years now. And I think I've been editor for 26 of those 27 years. And that was it. I just stayed there. And we just got bigger and bigger. And more people. We grew from 4 people when I joined. And I think right now we probably have, 20 or 30 people who write for us like in rotation. We don't have like a regular crew anymore like we used to. But for a while we were like maybe 6 or 8 people. We had a regular weekly podcast. We'd be putting out games all the time, or game reviews all the time. And I just got into it. I just stayed with it forever. And that's really the story. It's just, I like games. I like getting free games and I like to write, and those things all work together. And I do all those things really well. And here we are 26, 27 years later. And it's been cool. I've met so many cool people. I've met so many developers, publishers, designers, PR people of all sorts. Back in the day, they would like pay us to go on trips all the time. I went on a bunch of trips. I've been to E3 multiple times before it went away. I went to PAX a million times. Went on different press tours, went to San Francisco all the time. Got to go on these, like all this kind of really cool shit back in the day. So it was cool. It was fun. I will say though that I'm glad that I kept it to be kind of a side gig. It's never paid the bills. I don't know if anybody knows, but GameCritics.com is a volunteer only site, and it has been volunteer only for more than 20 of the 26 or 27 years. I know that she was really trying to make it generate some profit back in the day, but we were small. We didn't want to get drowned in ads, and ad revenue wasn't really that great anyway. And it just never really like monetized in the way that we wanted it to. So we just kept it going as like a labor of love. And I'm fine with that. At the time, I was really considering whether I should lean into being more of a professional full-time writer, or if I should do something else, freelance interpreting, which is what I do now. And I went with interpreting because I'm like, you know what? Honestly, I was writing for, God, what was it? Like G4 or something. I was doing some freelance writing for other sites at the time. I was writing for TV, some of the review sites that were on TV, and I was doing those reviews. And it sucked because I had this one really bad experience where I wrote a review and I gave it to the producer, and the producer took it, and the producer was not happy because they were just writing all positive reviews at the time. And you couldn't really say anything really bad because they were getting a lot of ad revenue from the publishers. And so they did not want to run a review of a bad game, even if the game was bad, because it meant they would lose review, lose advertising. And that just seemed really in conflict with like my personal ethics and who I was. And also, some of those people were just assholes, and I just didn't really like interacting with them at all. Some of those people that you saw on TV were pretty big dickheads. And so I was like, okay, fuck this. And after I had that experience, I'm like, I'm just going to do this for myself because I don't want to do things that I don't want to do. I don't want to say things I don't want to say. I don't want to be forced to take this hobby that I love and have loved basically my whole life and have it be like this grind that I hate or make it really negative. And so I'm like, whatever. I don't care if I don't make any money. I'm getting a bunch of free games. I'm going on trips. I'm meeting people. This is still really fun. And I get to do it on my own terms because I'm the boss at GameCritics.com and nobody can tell me what to do, which I enjoy. And so I've just kept it as that, have not tried to monetize, which is great because I think that was really the right answer. It's really, really hard to make money as a games writer. The bottom has dropped out of the market a million times. People getting laid off all the time, people getting bought and consolidated. And it's just like this giant turbulent mess. And I think most of the successful game writers that I know have a spouse who is not in games writing for the stable income. So I did ASL interpreting for my regular job, and that played out really well because I'm great at that, and it's provided me a life, and I got married to a wonderful wife, and we have a home and a kid, and things worked out. So I'm not sure that would have happened if I had leaned into games journalism or games writing. So I'm glad that I didn't, but I'm glad that I'm still in it. I'm glad that I did it for fun and for enjoyment, and that I could stay true to my principles. And here we are. Here we are. Hopefully that was an answer to your question. Hopefully that was interesting and not boring. If you're still here, if you noped out because it was too dull, I don't blame you. But there we go. Thank you to everybody who sent questions this week. That was great. So thank you to Karis. Thank you to Carlos, whoever that is. Thank you to Zebra. And thank you to Salty. Really, really appreciate the questions. And hopefully y'all got something out of it. All right. Moving on. Let's see. I am the editor of Game... Boy, I can't talk. Ugh, told you I needed that coffee. I wasn't kidding. Wasn't kidding. As editor of GameCritics.com, I want to put a little spotlight on things you may have missed. If you haven't been to the site this week, I have been. Have you? I go there pretty often. Let's see. What have we done this week? We did Disco Simulator review. We have a review of Resident Evil Requiem, which sounds like a real banger. That sounds like a pretty incredible game. We have a review of Styx, Blades of Greed, for that long-running series where you play as an amoral goblin. We have a review of Relooted, the one that all of the shitty right-wing people were taking a dump on. It actually sounds like a pretty good game that I think is probably going to be worth your time. And there's a couple other bits and bobs. So check those out if you want any neutral, unbiased reviews of those games. I think they're pretty good. We've got a lot of good writers at Game Critics. I'm really appreciative of the crew we have. If you are a writer at Game Critics and you're listening to this, I appreciate you. Also, heads up that Eugene Sachs has been doing a lot of work over at the YouTube, youtube.com/@gamecritics.com videos. Tons of new trailers that are handpicked by us on the staff. If you see a game trailer on our site, it is because, and the only reason it is there is because one of us thought it looked pretty badass. So we don't just post every trailer. We don't accept any money. We don't have any PR payouts or anything like that. We just do it because we love it. And if you see a trailer there, it is because we think it's fucking cool. Also, Eugene has couple of like Let's Plays or first looks. I think his most recent one was Anthem number 9, so check that out if you like. We're almost to the main content here, folks. But before we get there, just a quick heads up about the Patreon supporting the show. All the costs of this show and sister site GameCritics.com that I just mentioned are paid for out of my own pocket. And as I just said, we're not accepting any money. We don't have ads. We don't take any payouts from anybody. This is all just like solely independently supported. And so if you love the show, if you love the site, I would invite you all to chip in to help me keep it all running. If everybody listening would chip in just $1 a month, just one literal dollar, folks, just one, every expense would be covered. And if you can afford it, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, that is all the preamble. Let's get to the new games. All right, first new game of the show, Soulstone Survivors. I am a big fan of Survivors-like games, because sometimes you just need something to turn your brain off and you just want to keep your hands busy and you don't want to think too hard. And a lot of these Survivors games really fit the bill for that. This one does not. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure what the hook to this one is, because you begin, there's a story about, I don't know, some evil and you got to stop the evil and something, whatever. So you start off with like this barbarian guy, and it begins like typical kind of Survivors action. You're on a map. You can see the map. There's a couple things on the map, but nothing really interesting. There's a couple little things you can interact with. Like when you walk over there, like a big guy shows up and you kill him, or, you know, like a little challenge of, hey, kill these 10 monsters or something. But it's all really, really straightforward. And of course, the whole time you're being swarmed by a bunch of like little peon mobs, and you just like, you know, you auto attack. I will say one thing that's neat is you can move the right stick at any time to direct an attack. So you've got auto attack, but then you can also direct an attack if something is getting on your case, which is good. That's good. I like that a lot. So kudos to that. That's a good choice. You don't have to have either or. You can have both. But I got to say the graphics look pretty generic. It's kind of like a low poly kind of look to it intentionally, I'm sure. And it's just fine looking. It's not really super memorable. It looks just really, really basic. Monsters look really basic. It's really hard to tell what's going on at first. And I realize that's a problem with a lot of Survivors games, but I find that with many good Survivors games, it's not a problem until like later in a run. So for example, you know, you start off and there's just a couple monsters at first, and then it gets more and more, and then more and more. And then by the time you're at the end of your run, yeah, it's chaos. I mean, that's fine. But like this game, it felt like chaos almost immediately. Like, it was really hard to see what was going on, and just like a lot of stuff on the screen kind of obscuring the screen. And I was just walking around, and a lot of the power-ups just felt very dull. I mean, there were a couple different weapons you can get, but nothing that really like stood out. Nothing that really felt like, wow, or ooh, that's interesting, or oh, that's fun. Like, it was just generic, like sword swipes and lightning bolts, and it was just like, just felt very, very dull. So I was just running around and leveling up, and it just was just like, it was just like, I mean, yeah, it's a Survivors game, but like, that's all there really was to it. I'm not really sure what the hook was supposed to be. You get back to the menu, and there's like a bunch of stuff to level up. Like, there's a bunch of skill trees and like a bunch of different characters. I want to say there's like 20 or 30 different characters to unlock and level up, but I just wasn't inspired, man. I just didn't like the way it played. It didn't really have a hook. It didn't catch my interest. And I play a lot of these Survivors games, and there have been some really, really good ones. Like Achilles Survivor was kind of like a Greek theme, and you had these little emplacements that you had to go from place to place, like activating emplacements. That was kind of fun. Lots of Greek myths. I played yet another Zombie Survivors, which was an amazing one where you had 3 characters at the same time, and then you had like synergies between them, and you were fighting a zombie horde, and so that stood out a little bit. Of course, Vampire Survivor is a classic, but this one just didn't seem to really have a hook other than here's a million characters, and then you're going to be grinding a bunch to level all this stuff up. So it did not stick with me, and I generally do like these games, but this one just didn't have the juice. I was playing it, and it was working, and it was fine, but it just did not catch my attention. Didn't spark anything at all, like no feelings. It was like the video game equivalent of like, I don't know, like a bland mayo. Like, you're just like, yeah, it's there, but it's not really like enough on its own, and it's, I don't know, like it's I don't know, just nothing. It felt literally like the void of feelings when I was playing this game. Nothing at all. So Soulstone Survivors did not catch my attention. It's a Survivors. There's a lot here if you want to grind, but I just don't feel like it has a hook, and I don't feel like it has a real identity. It doesn't have a good, strong visual presence. It's just a game that works if you need one of these, and I guess that's all I have to say about it. Okay, so we started off on a down note, but the next 2 games, the rest of the show, all killer, no filler. This has been a good week, and in fact, it's such a good week, it's a bad week, because I am struggling to play both of these phenomenal games, and I just don't have enough hours in the day. Let's start off with Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. Dude, I love this game. It's so fun. I talked about the demo a while ago, and I am a Star Trek fan. I'm not like I don't know. Like, where do you draw the line between being a fan and being like a Trekkie or something, right? I don't own a pair of Spock ears. I don't own a shirt that has the Starfleet comm badge on it. Would I wear one if somebody gave it to me? Yes, I would. Have I bought one? No. So I guess I'm on the cusp. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm definitely a Star Trek fan for sure. So this game is obviously set on the TV series Voyager. If you're not familiar with Voyager, it is Captain Janeway and her crew. They were going out to do a mission. They got I'm going to save you a lot of the details. They got warped, teleported, transported to like the ass end of the galaxy, like 70,000 light years away from home, and even at max warp, they were not going to get home. Like, they would all die like long before they got back to Earth. And so the entire show of Voyager was about them getting their way back to Earth, how to get back to Earth before they all died. And they didn't want to become like a generational ship. That was even something they considered for a while, was becoming a generational ship where they would have kids, and the kids would take over the running of the ship, and they would, like, the 4th generation down would get back to Earth or something, which is a cool idea, but that's not what they went through in that show. Anyway, the game starts off with the same premise as the first episode. They get warped to the ass end of the galaxy. They got to figure out a way home. And from there, you kind of decide what to do. So it's really a sim management type game. The game begins, you get to look at the Voyager, a side view of the Voyager, which is great because you can see where everything is, where the engines are, where the science lab is, where the bridge is. Looks like the side view, like if you're playing XCOM and you see the base ant farm view or something like that, like a side view of your whole facility. And a lot of the rooms are wrecked because the ship took a lot of damage in the warping. So you can excavate these rooms, reactivate them, put whatever you want, mix and match, move things around. I will say one thing that kind of sucks about this is that you don't have access to the full ship at once. You've got to slowly build back usability. And so sometimes you're forced to put put facilities where you don't want to put them. So for example, I need a bunch of storage so we can have enough dilithium crystals to power the engine. And so I wanted to put those all near the engine room because that seems to make sense to me. Here's the engine room, here's the storage. But you can't do that right away because you don't have enough resources to like get down there and excavate those rooms. So sometimes you got to put like a room, like dilithium storage right next to the captain's cabin, which is stupid, but you don't have really a choice and you need the storage. And so I wish you could just pick up those rooms and move them. Like for example, in the altars, the game of the year last year for me, when you are doing an ant farm view of the base, you just pick a room, you move it around and just like rearrange it. You don't have to rebuild it. But in here, you do have to like demolish a room and then rebuild it with resources, which is kind of a drag. Not a big thing. I don't know. Just for usability, I wish you could move rooms around. Whatever. Anyway, so you have the engine, which uses fuel every turn. So you've got to constantly be looking for dilithium, which is a big problem on the show as well. You've got crew. You've got to find food, figure out how to do food. That was a huge problem on the show as well. Then you've got like all the characters from the show. They're there and they all have their different specialties. So you can rebuild the ship as you go. Try to get things running again, managing things, making sure you don't run out of food, make sure you don't run out of energy, do the most you can with the little resources you have. And because you're a million billion miles away from the nearest Starfleet base, you cannot just refuel somewhere. So you've got to like figure it out. So that's pretty cool. I like the ship management a lot. I will say the downsides to the ship management are that the UI could be, in general, the UI is really good, but I think that the rooms are pretty small and they're not very visually distinct. And so sometimes it's hard to remember, oh, wait, I need to go to the engineering office. Where is that? There's a bunch of other rooms and it doesn't stand out and you can't select there's no menu to highlight them. So sometimes you spend a few minutes like, okay, wait a minute. Where's the science lab? Oh, fuck. Where's the array? Oh, there it is. And then, I was something about that. I wish it was like more visually distinct a little bit. I think that would be great. So you're doing that. And when you're not doing that, you're flying around random galaxies. And so you can scan a galaxy and as you're flying the ship around, each planet will have different resources and you can land on these planets to get whatever resources. It plays out like basically a quick time event that is based on your stats. And so depending on what equipment you have on the ship, what you've upgraded, what you've built, what you've discovered, it'll give you like various degrees of success. Some options will be open. So for example, if you build the, whatever the fucking scoop is called, there's like a scoop on the ship. And if you have the scoop, you can fly through a cloud and collect gas. But if you don't have the scoop, then you can't. And so sometimes when you need to collect some fuel, it'll be like, if you have the scoop, then you can choose this choice. And if you don't have the scoop, then you got to choose this other choice. And there's different, penalties along with those. Sometimes you have a good outcome, you get some resources. Sometimes you have a bad outcome where you get only a little bit of resource or no resource. And maybe some people get hurt. You can send people to the med lab if they, had a bad experience, or people can die and stuff like that. So you have a little bit of risk and reward as you cruise through the galaxies, collecting all the stuff you need. You need raw materials to improve the ship. You need fuel. You need food. A bunch of different things like that to like keep you guys going as you're on your journey. As you're doing these things, you'll come across these little events. And so far, every single event that I've come across has been basically like an episode of Voyager, but like hyper condensed. So for example, one of the events that I came across was B'Elanna Torres, who is the engineer on Voyager. She is half human and half Klingon. I believe her mom was a Klingon and her dad was human. And so and there's this one episode of the TV show where these guys who are genetic experts grab B'Elanna and they separate her out into her Klingon and human halves. And so there's like a fully Klingon B'Elanna and a fully human B'Elanna. And that's like the episode of the show. It's like a whole show, like an hour. They take that same event. That event can crop up in this game. And when you get it, it's just like 3 or 4 little choices about, what do you do? Do you try to reintegrate B'Elanna? Do you leave her alone? What do you do? And there's little percentages associated with that based on the equipment you have. If you have the good science lab, better outcome. If you get the bad science lab, bad outcome, that kind of thing. And so the little quick time event and the choices are just like an episode. There's also a bunch of other things which I won't spoil. But like if you've seen the show Voyager, you will know all of these events. And you're like, oh shit, it's that one guy. Or, oh my God, it's that one thing that they did. Or, oh, it's this thing. So it's pretty cool like that. The thing that I'll say, though, that is the downside of that, though, is like if you haven't seen the show Voyager, a lot of these things will seem very random. You'll be like, wait a minute. Well, B'Elanna she's half Klingon. I guess I didn't really know that. And what does it matter if she is half human or fully, what? I guess you don't get the import. They don't lean into it. Like, it's not like you're watching The Witcher, right? Like, it's not like every single one of these events has like this fully fleshed out story. they're kind of just like name checking episodes, which if you've seen the show is awesome because you already know what it's about. But if you're new, if you're just playing this as a person who's not familiar with Star Trek, or you haven't seen Voyager, a lot of these are going to be kind of confusing. You're like, what happened to this? And oh, the Klingon one died, or oh, the human one died, or what happens? Oh well, whatever, and you just kind of roll on. So I think that they could lean into a lot of these a little bit more. I would like these to be deeper and to take a little bit longer. So that would be good. I will also say, in terms of downside, that the production values are pretty low. There's not very much voice acting. I would love if there was more voice acting. And if they couldn't get all of the original voices, which I'm sure is probably expensive, then at least have people who try to sound alike. And there is some voice acting, like between missions or between chapters, but it's not very much. And it would really help the game out a lot if there was like more presentation. When you do, sometimes when you're going to get resources, you do like an away team mission, which is you pick 3 characters from your ship and they go down to a planet, and then you have a series of quick time events, or not quick time events, like percentage events, where you choose based on your skills, who's got good combat skill, who's got good negotiating skill, who's got good science skill, and you kind of like go through these events and, you know, try to do the best you can. The art on those feels like placeholder art. It's very sketchy. It's very rough. It does not feel very much like you're looking at the characters. And so I think those are kind of low rent, and I wish those were a little bit better. And that's kind of like endemic of the whole game. I wish everything about it looked better and sounded better. But if you can get past the aesthetics, I think this is a really fucking fun game. I think the concept of the game totally works. Taking the ship, galaxy to galaxy, collecting resources, using up resources as you go, collecting crew members, negotiating challenges like this based on the stuff that you've built so far. This kind of like sim management is a perfect fit for Voyager. It's a perfect subject material. And I think that the way it plays out is really, really fun. I think it's really good. I like it a lot. And I think it just needs more razzle dazzle, which is, I mean, honestly, I think is the right problem to have. I would much rather have the problem it has now, which is great bones, but it lacks sizzle, because I think the opposite is worse. If it looked great, but the gameplay was ass, then it wouldn't matter, because the gameplay was ass. The gameplay's got to be there. And in this case, gameplay is absolutely there. It's really, really fun. I think it's a great simulation in general. And I think even if you're not a Star Trek fan, I think there's a lot to like here. I think the UI and just controlling the ship and managing the fuel and the resources and going through the galaxy and stuff is pretty fun all on its own. But if you've played Voyager, you're going to like it like 3 times more, because you're going to recognize all the callbacks. You're going to recognize the characters. You're going to recognize the references. And I think it just adds that much more. I don't think this game is purely fan service, though. I don't. I really don't. I think you could take this same structure, if you stripped out the Voyager stuff. If this was like a boat in the ocean, or if this was like a random spaceship that had no Star Trek attached to it, if it was a tank lost in the middle of the desert or whatever, the same concept of like manning your ship, collecting resources, managing your crew, and getting to where you need to go is a good one. It works. It's solid. This could be a One Piece game. This could be any kind of game. It could be a Gundam game. It could be anything. And it would work, because I think the gameplay formula is super fucking rock solid. It just needs a little bit more sizzle, needs a little bit more pizzazz, needs a little bit more, flair, voice acting, a little bit more cutscenes, a little bit more high res illustrations. But overall, it's a really fucking good game. I'm really enjoying it a lot. I think it's great. And I think when a sim game like this is done well, it's just like really, really beautiful thing. And I think the developers here are absolutely 100% on the right track. Absolutely on the right track. Having the best time with this. One thing. Before I wrap this up, I do need to let everyone know. Okay, so heads up. If you're going to play this game, this is pro tip. Pro tip. You gotta hear me. Listen to this. This is not a spoiler. This is a problem with the UI. So at one point, you're going to get access to the science labs. And this is where you upgrade like your various abilities. Go to Science Lab Level 2, Science Lab Level 3, research that fuel scoop I talked about, whatever. But the way that the developers have designed the UI, that is 100% not apparent. And many people have gotten stuck on this. I was stuck on this. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what I was missing. And because I didn't know what I was missing, I ended up getting a really late start to unlocking a lot of the stuff that would have helped me earlier in the game. So my run is not going great, because I didn't realize this. But here's the thing. So listen up. When you get access to these upgrades, you need to scroll all the way to the left of your screen. If you're playing on console, go all the way to the left of the screen. There's like a science tab, there's a engineering tab, there's a personnel tab, whatever. You go all the way to the left side of the screen. You will see on the left side of the screen, it'll say level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. It does not look like you can click on those, but those are exactly the things you need to click on in order to get your stuff advanced. It took me fucking forever to figure this out. I had to go to the Steam boards and somebody told me, and I'm like, oh, I did not get it. So you can upgrade any of these things anytime you want. And I was waiting for like story events, or I was waiting for something to happen, but no. You got to upgrade those yourself. So go to the left side of the screen, all the way to the left. See those tabs on the left. Click on those. It takes a little bit of fiddling with the controller. It doesn't just go over there. Fiddle with your controller, highlight those tabs, click on those tabs, and you'll see, would you like to upgrade your science lab? And like, fuck yes, I would. Would have liked to done it 6 hours ago, motherfucker. So pro tip. That's really the only pro tip I have. But check that out. Upgrade those things. It's fucking crucial to your progression in the game. And that's, I think, the one thing the developers really stumbled hard on is like they did not call out how you upgrade those tabs. And it's so fucking important to the game. So there you go. Did my good service for the day. Upgrade the tabs. You'll be all set. Otherwise, Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. Great game. I love it. I think it's really good. Lacks a little sizzle, but that's okay. I think it's got it where it counts. I'm loving it. I'm going to finish this game. I think it's a great Star Trek property, and I think the bones of the game are great. Could apply to anything. So kudos. I'm having a blast. Last game of the show. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because this was kind of a surprise edition, and I haven't played a whole lot of it, but I do need to talk about it. Sumerian 6 from Artificer. Now, if you listen to the show, you will know that last week or the week before, I talked about Showgunners, which was a turn-based tactics game set in like a Running Man kind of universe. Had a blast with it. Showgunners is fantastic, and I was really excited about that because I know that they did Sumerian 6. It was on PC, and I was really hoping they were going to bring it to console. Well, guess what came out this week on console? Boom! Out of nowhere, Sumerian 6. I'm like, oh shit. I had no idea it was coming out. I wasn't even sure it was planned for console, and here it is. PR was kind enough to send me a code. Mr. PR, you know who you are. You're my man. You're my bro. Thank you very much for sending this. Appreciate it. And so, I'm going to talk about it right now. Full disclosure, have not finished this game. I'm only in the 3rd level of I don't know how many, but I feel like that's enough to get started talking about this. So, Sumerian 6, what is it? This is a real-time... No. It's not an RTS. It's a turn-based tactics with some real-time elements into it. Now, what does that even mean? I'll tell you. If you listen to the show, if you listen to me, if you know me, you know that I'm a big fan of Me Games, who is no longer a developer. Me Games made Shadow Tactics, they made Desperados 3, and they made one other one. Shadow something, the pirate one. It doesn't matter. Don't remember. Shadow Gambit, that's what it was. Shadow Tactics, Shadow Gambit, and Desperados 3. Every single one of those games, brilliant. Like basically a masterpiece of this blend of turn-based tactics and real-time elements where you move characters around. Timing matters, sight lines matter, but there's also turn-based elements to it where you have multiple team members who have different abilities, and so you plan your attack through a 3/4 view, isometric view. You do kind of a military style tactics. So for example, let's say that you are, you want to rescue somebody who's been kidnapped. You take your group of characters in a 3/4 view, top down kind of view. You're walking across the map in real time. You get to different vantage points. You can stop the action, move your characters around a little bit, plan out some attacks. Maybe one guy's going to shoot out the windows. Maybe one guy's going to go to the roof. Maybe one guy's going to throw a stick of dynamite or something. And then you can key off a button. All those things happen at once. Then you rescue your friend. Everybody on your team has abilities and stuff like that. So that's kind of how the genre works. It's like turn-based tactics, but like with a real-time element added and a lot of like minutia and control. And Me basically, well, I don't want to say they invented it, but I think they really repopularized and revolutionized and innovated on it. I know that people were saying Commandos did this beforehand. I haven't played Commandos, so I can't say. But I was introduced to this with the Me games, and they're all great. So Me made 3 bangers, and they're like, you know what? This is hard work making games, and we're tired, so we're going to quit. And they like disbanded, and they're not a studio anymore, which broke my fucking heart. Have you guys not heard of Vacation? I know what's wrong with you. Anyway, they were so influential. There's been a bunch of games since they broke up that have basically followed this same template that they repopularized again. And this is not shade, but this is just a fact. Sumerian 6 is basically carbon copy a Me game. Basically everything about it. from the graphics to the UI, to the systems, to the timing, to the abilities. Basically everything about it lifted whole cloth from Me. And I don't know if any Me members are on the Artificer team. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. I'm not sure. But if you're going to steal from the best. And Me is the best. So getting a game like this, which basically lifts everything from Me, is pretty okay. Because Me is not a thing anymore. And I love these kind of games. And I want somebody to keep making them. So Sumerian 6, here it is. And spoiler, it's fucking great. Like Artificer, they understood the assignment. They get what made the Me game so great, and they lean into it and they double down on it, and it's fucking great. So I can't complain. I'm not complaining. I think this game is fucking really fun. Basically, it's set around World War II, the time period between World War I and World War II, and the Nazi war machine is ramping up. You play a group of operatives who are going after, basically Hitler. Hitler has this program that he's using some kind of supernatural energy to kind of kick off his machinations. In real life, Hitler was very much into the occult and was looking into, otherworldly means to fortify the Third Reich. And so in this context, you need to go and stop Hitler from doing whatever it is he's doing. You don't know what he's doing exactly, but you know it's not good. And so you get a team together of people who are like basically super soldiers. Not really super soldiers in like the Captain America sense, but super soldiers in the sense that like they have these extraordinary abilities. And so your first character, for example, he can run and jump and duck and shoot and all that stuff. But he also has a flash bomb that he can set off that blinds people for a few seconds. And he also has this incredibly strong power where he pushes a button and he reduces himself to like atoms or something, and he can like stick to people who are walking by, and he quote unquote hitchhikes on them to get behind enemy lines. So like, let's say for example, you need to get into like some kind of an installation or a bunker and there's way too many guards. You just got to find one guard with his back turned. You push that button, reduce yourself to atoms, you stick to his back, and when that guard goes inside the bunker, you go with him. And when you're inside, you can reformulate yourself inside, knock that guy out, and then you're home free. That's a really, really strong power. That's a very strong power from the get-go. Very quickly, you meet this guy's sister. His sister also has really fucking strong powers. She can she has a flare that she can throw on the ground that distracts people, that they will come and check it out. And when they come over and check it out, you can bonk them on the head. She also straight up turns invisible. She's just fucking straight up invisible. That's a really, really strong power. She also has this power where she can swap bodies with someone. So like, let's say for example, there's a guard that's behind a gate and you can't get to him. You got to kill that guy because he's going to spot you. You can just see him, switch bodies with him. So the sister goes where the guard is where the sister is. And then once he's out of his gate, you can kill him. I mean, these are strong powers right off the bat. Incredibly strong powers for characters of this type to have in a game of this type. So the developers are like, fuck it, we're going to have fun with this. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, I'm on board. So basically you get these really big maps with a lot of freedom to them. I will say they are not as open as some of the Me maps. And I think that's okay. I think that's totally okay. They are more guided. They are more hemmed in. And there are more concrete and clear paths through the levels than Me did. Me was pretty famous for having just wide open levels, which could sometimes take a long time to get through. And they narrow it down. And I think that's totally fine. I like that there are fewer paths and less places to get lost in. The action stays more focused, and it feels a bit more like a series of discrete challenges rather than just trying to like murk your way through an entire level, which is totally okay. That's not to say these levels are small though. I just did one level last night. I was in a German villa where you start at one end of the villa, tons of houses, paths, rivers, you get through the whole thing, guards all over the fucking place. You get through that thing, and then at the end there's like one of those German super planes that you got to hijack. There's a cyborg guy with like a fucking minigun. There's all sorts of stuff to do. By the time I had finished that level, like it's been about 3 hours, like 3 hours per level, which is kind of on par with the Me games. So even though they are smaller, more focused, more narrow, it's not to say that they're small. I mean, smaller, you get it? So 3 hours, 3 hours for a level, that's a pretty big commitment. And that's about on par with how these games play. But it was fun. It was great. I love using these powers in a creative way. And the powers are really fucking strong. Unbelievably strong, and so like you don't feel like you're just really barely scraping by. Like you feel like you really command the battlefield, which is great. And I love it. I think it's really fun. There's some cool cutscenes. They have some fake lore they put in about supernatural powers and taking down the Third Reich, and you're fighting Nazis and killing loads of Nazis. I think you kill like 80 Nazis in like the second level or something like that. And man, if there's one thing I really enjoy right now, it's killing Nazis. So that gets a huge thumbs up for me. So I don't want to say more than that right now, other than the fact that this is absolutely, could easily pass for a Me sequel. It's certainly a spiritual sequel. I like the theme. I like the characters, like the abilities. I mean, I like everything about it. Me games were great. This game is therefore great because it's basically the same thing. And I'm just loving it. I'm having a great time. Cannot put it down. Very eager to crack back into the next level. I went to a German castle. You're inside the castle. You got to figure out how to get like the intel and sneak around and shit. It's fucking just good ass times. I just broke a guy out of prison. The guy is a fucking werebear. So he like turns into a giant fucking like 9-foot grizzly bear who can still talk. That's fun. These are fun things. I'm enjoying this quite a bit. So in case you can't tell, I think this game is great. I'm going to put a pin in it now, and I'll come back after I finished it. I'm just scratching the surface. But Sumerian 6, playing it on PS5. It's also on Xbox. It's also on PC. If you like the Me turn-based tactics plus real-time, this is that formula to a T. If you've never played it, I think this is a great one to start with. Very, very good times. Thumbs up, absolutely so far. More to come. All right, folks, game portion of the show is now officially done. But like many folks, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right. It is time for the TV and movie roundup. All right, first up, School Spirits Season 3 just wrapped. This is the show about a girl who gets killed in her high school. She becomes a ghost, and she realizes there are other ghosts there as well. And then she needs to figure out who murdered her and what is it like to be a ghost and what does that mean, so forth and so on. The show has continued to grow from there, and we just finished Season 3, like I said. It's been pretty good. Still into it. Still like the cast is great. I love the cast a lot. I think it's a fun cast. The mystery is getting deeper. They're adding more elements. I think they're walking a very fine line with this one where I feel like it's almost getting a little bit too complicated in terms of like how the ghost world works and what are the rules of being a ghost. In the beginning, it seemed pretty straightforward, but I think as the story grows and goes on, it feels like stretching credulity a little bit. I mean, you already have to kind of suspend disbelief because it's a ghost story from the get-go, but like it's almost getting like pretty technical in some ways, which I don't know how much I care for that. But I like the cast a lot. I think it's an interesting show. Season 1 is fantastic. I would definitely recommend Season 1 to anybody. From that point on, I think it kind of depends on how into it you were. But they seem like they're setting it up for Season 4. And we would definitely watch more of it for sure. I do kind of wonder, though, is there an endpoint? I know this show was based off of a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels. I have not read the comics, so I don't know anything about the comics. But I hope that there is an endpoint, because I feel like if they just keep going and don't have an endpoint, it's going to end up like Lost or something where they just weren't able to bring it to a close and it's going to peter out and get stupid. I have enjoyed the performances a lot. I've enjoyed the cast a lot. So I hope that there's an endpoint and they bring it home and it all just wraps up, and that would be perfect. So I know we're allergic to that in America, but hopefully they can have a good conclusion planned and we'll finish strong. So hopefully there's a good finish to Season 4 and we'll see where it goes. But so far, good show. Season 1, great. Season 2, good. Season 3, good. Hoping that they finish at least good. We'll see. Continuing on, still watching Warehouse 13, the show about secret agents who hunt magical artifacts down in the world and bring them back to the warehouse so that these artifacts are not causing problems out and about. Again, very strong cast in this show. Love the cast. It's just fun to watch them interact with each other. They're all mega likable. They're all very funny and charming, and it's just a great cast. Very light watch. It's not too heavy, and I think it's exactly what I need to be watching right now. We just started Season 3 out of 5, so we're about halfway through. Cannot recommend the show enough. If you like sci-fi fantasy, a little bit of lighthearted banter, a little bit of, jokey joke, it's pretty great. It's not completely weightless, but it's definitely on the lighter side, and it's just so much fun. Really enjoy Warehouse 13 a lot. And the cast, again, just fucking amazing. Also this week, we started watching Starfleet Academy, kind of circling back on the Star Trek theme. Definitely Star Trek fans in this house, and we weren't sure what to expect, but we watched 2 episodes last night, the first 2 episodes, and it was not what I expected, but it was also really quite good. The first episode It's like an hour and 15 minutes long. It's almost a movie-length episode. And I did not realize that Holly Hunter was the new captain of the show. She is doing a great job. She looks a lot older than the last time I saw her, so that was a bit of jarring because I'm used to, in my head, I think of her as like in Raising Arizona or something, but I'm like, of course, time moves on. We're all human beings in meat space, so of course things change. It was just like kind of a shock. I haven't seen her for a while, and so I was like, oh shit, like, yes, you have aged. But she does a great job as the captain, Captain Ake, I think her name is. And the first episode was wild. Like it almost felt like a Star Wars episode, like lots of action, flying around space, shooting, explosions, combat, stuff happening. Like it was very fast paced. But they do a good job of establishing the captain and the cast, and it was really good. The ship design in this show, the wildest Star Trek design. I believe the ship is called the Athena, I'm pretty sure. Crazy, sleek, low profile ship. I was like, damn, that's a crazy looking ship. It's very, very high tech. It has these movable sections to it, and it separates and all this stuff. It's pretty ballsy, pretty interesting ship design. But it's about basically Star Trek rebuilding Starfleet Academy. I don't know what's going on. This seems to be pretty far in the future. I believe this is something like 500 years after Voyager, give or take, from my understanding. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. So a lot of things have changed, and it's pretty far in the future. So they're rebuilding Starfleet Academy, and they get this new group of kids, and the beginning is all just like combat in space and everything, but then they eventually get to Earth, they settle down, and they're starting to train the kids. And so it's all about the kids and the personalities. Again, pretty good cast. We like the characters so far, and it's about just people growing up as Starfleet kids starting over. So it's not all, it's not like episode of the week like you would get from normal Star Trek. It's not like problem of the week and stuff. They're not traveling all over. But it's pretty good if you're into the other aspects of what Starfleet would be like. If Star Trek was a real thing, there would be an academy. There would be Earth to go home to. There would be people who are not on a starship all the time. I mean, and so this is kind of tapping into some of that, which I think is pretty cool so far. So we like it. First 2 episodes, real strong. Final thing of the week, a movie, Cold Storage, just came out for rental. Cold Storage. This is I believe they describe it as splatter horror. Not sure that I would describe it as that. There was a lot of splattering, but like it wasn't really too scary. It's about a military facility that has this kind of fungus inside of it, and the fungus escapes and it starts to mutate people, turns them into fungus zombies. Stars Liam Neeson, which is great. He's always a fun time in my book. I like me some Liam Neesons, and a couple other folks. That guy from Stranger Things, I forget what that guy's name is, but a couple other folks. It was good. I mean, it was fun, actiony. It was light. It was goofy. Lots of laughs. Lots of stuff like zombies exploding, lots of juice all over the place. So I guess it does qualify as splatter, I suppose. But yeah, it was good. It was good. A good popcorn watch. Not too creepy, not too scary, not too gross. Just good, fun, a lot of laughs, good time. We had a blast with it. So Cold Storage, if you want something that's a little bit scary, but not really, and just has Liam Neeson in it. And who doesn't want that? I mean, that's good times. All right, folks, that's a show. Before the closing music, we'd love for you to leave reviews, share the show on social media, but most important of all, share the show with your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. And as always, as you saw today, would love to get your questions and comments. Email me directly, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. That's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. You can also find me in the Soviet Games Discord, which is totally free of charge. Just drop me a line through any of the channels I just mentioned, and we'll get you on board to continue the conversation. And finally, if you would like to support this show, if you like what you heard, and if you like what you see over at GameCritics.com, if you'd like to help us with the cost of running this podcast and that website, you can do that over at patreon.com/the Soviet Games Podcast. Every single dollar helps, and €1 helps that much more. And when you think about it, just for a minute, you're getting these shows basically for 25 cents a show. So if you feel like this show is worth a quarter of a US dollar, maybe think about chipping in. That would be a huge help. It would help me get costs paid. I'd really appreciate it very much. So if you like what you heard, if you like the fact that you get basically one show a week for 24/7 forever, and you only pay about 25 cents, that's a pretty good value for money, right? Like, hopefully you laughed a couple times. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe you learned about a game you didn't know about. Maybe you had an idea that didn't occur to you. Maybe you liked my stories. Who knows? Anything. If you liked anything, if anything here was worth 25 cents to you, then maybe consider chipping in a buck. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, folks, that's going to do it for episode 478. Thank you again for joining me here on the So Videogames podcast, and I'll see you next week.